Hey, it's Steve from Pinnacle Sports. Today we're going to be talking about how to pick the right climbing shoe for you. So there's a few things to consider. We're going to run through how to size a shoe, what kind of features to look for, how aggressive of a fit and shoe shape you want, and whether you want a Velcro closure or a lace closure. So we'll start with sizing. What we find with a lot of people who come into the store to try on shoes is their first time trying on shoes. They've never worn a climbing shoe before except for in the gym with the higher shoes, and they're not sure how tight to get it. They've heard that it's meant to be pretty tight, but they don't actually know what that feels like. So it's all going to come down to personal preference. Myself, I like a pretty tight shoe, but I know a lot of other experienced climbers, they prefer a looser, more comfortable fit. It's really going to come down to what feels right for you, and what gives you the best performance to comfort ratio. So you are going to be looking for a pretty snug fit. So you want your toes to be touching the end of the shoe. You don't want any movement in the shoe, but you also don't want it to be pinching anywhere, like on the sides or on the Achilles tendon, anything like that. You just want it to be snug, but mostly comfortable. Once you've got the right size, what you want to look for then is whether you want, say, a flat shoe, which is great for beginners who are just getting started out, or a slightly moderate downturn shoe, which is more suitable for intermediate climbers or beginners who've been climbing for a while in the rental shoes, or if you want to go up to a really high performance model where it's got the big curve. So you can see these are very flat shoes. What that means is that when you're standing on those smaller holds, you will get a lot of support, which is really helpful for people who are just getting started out and they haven't quite developed that toe strength. It also is going to be a more comfortable fit because your foot's not going to be, being pressured into a certain shape. It's going to be a fairly natural, as close to your regular street shoe as you'll get. So you might be wondering what the difference is between these two shoes. One, the Scarpa Helix is a lace shoe and the Momentum is a Velcro shoe. This again is going to be a personal preference thing. The advantages of Velcro obviously is it's very easy and quick to take on and off. And so once you've been climbing for a little bit and your toes are starting to ache, it's easy to just rip the Velcro off and have a quick break. The advantage of the lace model is that you're able to get a more accurate fit. So if your foot's a bit wider in certain places, the lace will let you actually adjust the width of the shoe along the whole length. And the other thing that doesn't come up as often, but it's actually really good for foot jamming. So if you're doing any crack climbing outdoors and you're jamming your foot in and twisting it to lock it in place, the Velcro will actually come undone when you do that, whereas the lace is more likely to stay closed up. So good option for that. The other difference is the rubber. So the Scarpa Helix, very thin rubber, it's 3.5 mils, whereas the Black Diamond Momentum, it's I think 4.2 mil. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. So with the thinner rubber, it's going to be more sensitive, which means you have a better feel of what you're standing on, but it is also less durable. And so over time, it will wear out quicker. But the main thing is what you like best when you actually wear the shoe. So it's all about trying it on, seeing what you like, and going from there. So the Scarpa Veloce, it's a new shoe. So you can see it's not super aggressive, but there is that slight curve here. This is a really soft shoe, so it doesn't actually give you a lot of support, but because it's so soft, it's going to feel really nice. It's basically like wearing a slipper or a sock. You'll see that here, when compared to, say, the Helix is a full sole here, so the rubber runs all the way down and it's quite stiff, so it's hard to bend. Whereas with the shoe like the Veloce, where it's got this split sole, very flexible. So what that means is that when you are standing on like volumes or slopers and smearing, you're able to really engage the forefoot, which gives you a lot of really good grip when you're on that kind of terrain, but not as much support when you're standing on like face climbing, where you're standing on edges. But because it's so soft, it will be very comfortable. However, with softness does come that trade-off in durability. So again, it's all about working out what you want out of your shoe. What are the advantages that you're looking for? If you want something that's really soft and you're not so fussed about it lasting a long time, then go for a really sensitive shoe. Whereas if you're looking for something that is maybe more durable and you don't need the sensitivity, it might be worth looking at something with a harder rubber, a stiffer sole. And so that brings us to the most aggressive type of shoe. So these are really like the high performance range. So I've got here the Evolve Phantom and the Scarpa Booster. So you can see when looking at these, they have a really, really strong curve, lots of rubber all over them. And the other thing you'll notice, to varying degrees, they are asymmetrical. So what that means is the shoe, instead of going in a straight line, it actually curves around. So what that does is it puts all of the pressure and all of the power into that one point, which is where your big toe will be. So that's your strongest toe. It's the best pivot point. It really lets you push off those small holds. But that comes with a trade-off in comfort. And so when you're wearing a shoe like this, you're probably not going to be wearing it for a long time. You're going to be taking it off between climbs. You're going to be struggling to put it on if you've got a tight fit. But it does give you the most bang for your buck in terms of performance. There's a different degree of asymmetry. So you'll see that the Phantom, while it is slightly asymmetrical, it's not as asymmetrical as the Booster. So that will be probably a more comfortable fit in general. But the Booster will give you more power on that big toe. The other thing to consider now is every shoe and every company that makes shoes has their own features. So for example, on the Booster, they've got this orange strip here, which they call the PAF. So what that does is it is essentially a strip of rubber that pushes the heel in and forces the toe to the front of the shoe. So just like the asymmetry, it's all about getting the most power into the shoe. Most power into the toe. It also locks the heel in, so it's less likely to slip out. You're going to feel more solid when you're doing heel hooks. Compare that to the Evolve Phantom, where it has what they call the dark spine. So it really is a very similar thing. It's the same concept, it's just a different name because it's a different company. So when you're looking at shoes and trying to work out what each feature does, just remember that there is a lot of similarity between them. They might have different names because it's their own technology, but it is really all about doing the same thing. So you want to look for not necessarily the best feature, but what's the most appropriate feature for you. The other thing to consider, depending on the type of climbing you're doing, is how much rubber is on the top of the shoe. So if you're doing a lot of indoor bouldering, where these days they have lots of toe hooks, you might want to have a look at a shoe that has a lot of rubber like the Evolve Phantom here, or even something like the Teneo Oasi, where it just has a patch here. So it's not covered in rubber, but they've put rubber here, which is where you're actually going to be toe hooking. So it might not be as good for like toe scumming, but if you're doing a proper toe hook, it's actually going to be really solid. And it does give you a bit of protection as well, because otherwise you just got the fabric. If it's a sharp toe hook, it's not going to be super comfortable. You might be wondering what the different terrains of climbing are and what the best shoe is for each. So just give a broad summary. You've got slab climbing, which is when the wall is less than vertical. So in that kind of climbing, a lot of your weight is going to be on your feet, and you're going to be using very small handholds most of the time. It's very balancy, and so that kind of climbing, you want a shoe that does give you a bit of support and also has quite sticky rubber. Then you've got face climbing. So this is when the wall is pretty much bang on vertical, and that's often a case of having very small edging footholds. So what I mean by that is the footholds will be probably pretty positive, so you'll be able to actually stand on them, but they'll be quite small. So again, for that, you probably want a fairly supportive shoe, and something that is hard enough that when you stand on it, it doesn't compress the rubber and roll over. And then from there, you've got your overhung climbing. So this is when the footholds, again, they're probably pretty positive, but because they're overhung, you actually need a curved shoe to really get the most out of them, because the curve lets you kind of pull into the hold and keep you on the wall. So when you're looking at a first shoe, for example, what you want to get is something that has a bit of support and has sticky rubber. This will help you to stand on all the different holds that you might be finding in the gym, compared to, say, using runners. The rubber in climbing shoes is specifically designed to be as sticky as possible. So there are lots of different types of rubbers. I think every shoe company pretty much has 3 or 4 different ranges, and they're all designed to either be soft as possible or as hard as possible or somewhere in between. The softer rubbers will be the stickiest rubbers, but they'll also be the quickest wearing. And so as a beginner, you probably don't want something that's going to wear super quickly, because you want to be able to get used to the shoe and feel it out and work out what you actually like about the shoe. And then, in a year or year and a half or 2 years' time, when you decide that it's time to upgrade, then you'll have a better idea what to look for in your next pair of shoes. So if you're a beginner and you're looking for your first pair of shoes, I would definitely recommend checking out either the Scarpa Helix or the Black Diamond Momentum. Both really solid shoes. I've already gone over the advantages of each. So it's really going to come down to what actually fits your foot the best. So they're slightly different shapes. You can see that. And so it's really going to come down to just you coming into the store, trying them on, having a play on the wall, seeing what feels right for you. And if you do come into the store, we've got friendly staff here who can help you find the right size and shape for you. So guys, if you have any specific questions or anything you'd like to know more about climbing shoes, please come in and have a chat to us. We've got a great team here, and we've got a wall that you can try out shoes on. You can also get in touch with us via Facebook, Instagram. You can call us, you can email us. All the links are in the description. So yeah, please get in touch.